kind of following off of Cindy's talk, I kind of want to run you guys through an example of like an actual tool and like how we built it and like what like the specific logic is, right? Because thinking of these things conceptually is like one thing, I think implementing them is another. And so when we were thinking about ways to apply AI at WorkOS, we have a whole applied AI team. One of the key ways we were thinking of helping marketing is with content generation. So how many of you guys have like really struggled to come up with good ideas for like pieces of content for like SEO or a blog? Maybe no one, but a few people. Okay, cool. How many of you guys have struggled to get engineers to write really cool things for SEO or a blog because you know they could? Yeah, probably a lot of people. It's a very common marketing problem. I was in startups before this and that was like bane of my existence. And so we wanted to try to figure out how do we create like an AI basically editorial team that will both try to curate ideas on our behalf and then also help our really smart engineers, product people, leaders build out pieces of content that we could then like put into the world and like have that whole process be as automated as humanly possible while keeping them in like the loop the whole time and keeping it up to like our internal standard for what good content looks like, right? So this is our draft house, which is where we interact with our thing called BlogBot, which is our main like AI agent for working through these kinds of problems. And if you go up here, we have like our daily digest that it'll give us. So it'll actually go through our internal calls and it'll like check out like, hey, what's an interesting topic in these internal calls that we can maybe turn into a piece of content? Because our engineers talk about cool technical problems all the time. And it'll give us a list of 10 of these and we can go through and either we can draft it, we can refine the prompt, we can like look at the additional details of like where it came from, or we can skip it. So we get this every day and it's a really great way to sort of start feeding ideas into our system and like get a general idea of like, hey, what's kind of going on internally, what are people talking about, and like where could we go from here? That's like one thing that we do, and the drafting process I'll get into in a sec. And the second thing is that you can obviously chat it up and say like, hey, here's a video, can you make a thing off of it? We have a automated sequence to pull in from linear and then have it auto draft something. And that's me talking to it in the replies. I'll kind of get into that in a sec. Or you can give it like a very specific article that you want and it'll go into that and do it for you. So we have like a lot of different inputs this bot accepts. So in live demo spirit, I'm gonna do this here, which is me basically giving it a MD file, which is like the talk that I'm giving you right now, effectively. And I'm asking it to turn it into a blog post because when you give a really good talk, you might as well turn it into a blog post, right? And so it's already starting working on this, thank goodness. And so it's going through these steps, right? And it's extracting facts, which means nothing to you right now. That's okay. And I'm gonna take this time while it's working through this to talk to you about how this works, because I think that's more interesting. And Claude's gonna make me sign in again, okay. Let's see, please still be here. Hello, of course we do, okay, sorry. Okay. This is rite of passage for our demos today, I think. Please still be here. Please be my artifact. Okay, cool. Okay, so initially on intake, so all of these steps are basically discrete AI steps, and they all exist within a Cloudflare workflow that we're hosting. The reason we do it in Cloudflare is because most of our AI tools start from an engineering lens, and Cloudflare is just like a hosting platform where we can build these workflows, but you could do this in like an NHN or really any workflow builder, I think, by and large. And so these are just the steps that we've built out within this workflow to process this particular task in the way that we think it's sort of best. This is like our engineering lens of how we approach this problem. So initially, we need to classify what the input was. So, you know, what did they tell us? Did they give us a basic, like, here's an overview? Did they give us a bullet list? Did they give us a YouTube video? Did they give us like a past article to copy? There's a lot of different inputs we accept. So there's about like 30 possible labels that we can give this, but we try to classify what the initial input was. We resolve the author, which is like, hey, based on who this was in Slack, can we find them in our database? And then within our database, can we find like what their preferences were? Because different users over time will obviously have different preferences for how they like to write their content. For example, if like our engineer comes in, it's gonna be like, oh, this is an engineering article, let me get into that headspace. And then we resolve any of like the links and other things that are provided. Then following that, we jump into like the research step, which is effectively fetching everything from the resources that was given to us, right? And all these are different handlers for different resource types. So if it's GitHub content, we pull the code and all the information there. If it's a URL, we have a bunch of different handlers that handle Notion, YouTube, any kind of resource link that you'll give us. And then we fetch the thread history. So this can be the thread that you gave the blog bot to be like, hey, there was a really cool conversation that happened here. Can you like make this an article? Or like what was leading up to it so that I can kind of get the general gist of what you guys were talking about in the lead up for it. And also, if we have not enough content beyond what was given, we can also scrape our own internal content for additional like padding effectively. Reason we do this as opposed to going out into the world is we want to have like these verified facts coming from us that we want to start with, and then expand out from there, right? We don't want it to hallucinate or lie to us. So that's like the primary goal is to establish like this universe of facts that we're like pretty sure is solid. Following that, we start building out our facts, which are like our basically discrete pieces of information that like all these tools agree on exist. Usually these are like things with numbers, hard assertions, like the thesis point, like the main things that either coming from the author or coming from the source that we want to incorporate into here. And we also want to make sure we cite, right? The primary reason for doing this whole like crazy fact thing is to basically have everything be traceable. So we know, okay, this assertion came from here, and because we know that, we don't need to like necessarily double check it, but this assertion doesn't have a cited source. So that means it might have come from nowhere, and we can like use that to verify what the AI is doing versus like what we provided it and how it's interpreting that, right? So just us being a bit like tad neurotic about like how we make sure that everything's like correct and well formed. And this just basically helps people have to not doubt the output of this tool quite so much. So they don't have to be like, oh, well, it's gonna give me some garbage. I have to go read the whole thing again. I have to make sure everything's right. We're trying to avoid that step by doing a lot of this pre-checking on your behalf. Then we're gonna generate the draft, and then we have 76 or so like pattern recognition tools to find like really common AI-isms that are like in words that we don't want to include. So we get rid of those, and then we validate our citations. So we look at every assertion, we try to make sure we link it back to something, one of our original facts that we had. And then we also have a competitor guard that basically just makes sure that the way we talk about competitors complies with our general PMM principles when it comes to talking about that. And then, promise we're almost done. Sorry, it's so long. We have 20 steps. So for validation, we do a couple of things. The main things that I think are interesting are like, we will further declawed it. So beyond the initial Opus call that creates the draft, and then after we pull out all the initial things we were able to find that are like AI adjacent by pattern matching, we then run another pass over to like declawed it and make it sound less like it just came from AI. We review the accuracy, which is more like the precision. So we try to make sure like, hey, are we like making claims that we can back up? Does this sound like it was like asserted correctly? These are all like just good writing principles. You can think of all these steps as basically like, you have a team of good writers and they're trying to critique you, and that's what all these agents are trying to be effectively. And then we will like, make our links look nicer, make our YouTube things inline, enforce sentence case, basic stuff like that. And then finally, we have our sensitivity check. So this has like a bunch of references internally. We make sure that we're not releasing anything that we're not meant to release to the public yet. This is another thing that's supposed to like help take the brakes off, so to speak. So we don't have to be so careful about what we put out there. We can be pretty sure that like, hey, everything that's sensitive, it knows about, and it can screen for before we even hit publish. So it lets people sort of run autonomously in that way, trying to like remove the bottlenecks that we have here. We generate inline images from like a sort of set of standard colors and resource library using Gemini. We save the entire thing to D1, and then we post it. And so hopefully, if I switch back to Slack, it'll be posted, and it has something to show you. Yeah, okay, cool. So as you can see, these are all the steps that I just went through, so we did that. I can click here to edit my draft, which will pull up a new window. So this is the draft that I just created. This is the image I just created. And then, there's one flag fact check that I want to do, so I'll ask to show it. It'll say like, hey, this is like an uncited claim. This is like so AI, but I can work with that later. I can review the draft. Here's the image it gave me, and then I can also ask it to generate a like thumbnail image, which I think it'll take a second to do. It usually doesn't do it right away. But from here, we can actually stage it in Webflow, and we actually like know how to hook up the Slack user to the Webflow person or the Webflow user, so you can do the authorship correctly. So that means that you don't have to have anyone to stage it. You can just auto stage it, double check it there, and then you can publish it from here too, which I won't do because I'm scared. But it's like the general principle. And then here's like the thumbnail that it will come up with, right? That should be me, but like we're working on some stuff. Yeah. Any questions on any of this? This is kind of a very fast overview. I'll start. Yeah.
Is there any reason why you use like a mix of models, like also Opus and then Haiku and then?
Oh, yeah, good question. So we use Haiku for things that are fairly like, so basically like Haiku is a cheaper model, Opus is a more expensive model. So we want to use Opus for the important thing like drafting. We want to use Haiku for like categorization or things that are kind of dumb, right? Like you don't need to like know a lot to do that effectively. It's just like a cost saving thing. Yeah. And then, yeah.
How do you iterate on the blog post? Does it go back?
Wow, you guys are asking great questions. So yeah, basically you just app log bot again, and I can be like, I can just be like that, and then it'll start thinking maybe eventually, maybe it'll ignore me because I'm being mean, but it'll kind of just keep going from there.
How can you be more surgical in your iteration, like
Mm.
this particular paragraph or something like that?
You can usually like quote it, so you can be like, hey, this line I don't like, or like this thing, you can copy paste it, but you can also go into like the edit draft and you can just like make the edits here as well. Yeah, yeah. Any other questions? Yeah. So the engineer that set it up is kind of goated and juiced, and so it took him like maybe 2 days. But I think like if I was building this, I think with all the steps, it would maybe take me like a week or so, and I have like I'm a good market engineer, so I have a good amount of experience setting up things like this, and we build a lot of stuff internally here at WorkOS, so like I have done a lot of these projects. So it depends on your familiarity with AI for sure, but it just like, if you're working in like NHN, for example, just start with like one step at a time, and then if you do it the discrete step model, that makes it a lot easier to manage.
Thanks, Jack.
Okay, cool, thanks.